Let's open your tight hip flexors. The hip flexors are such a common area to feel discomfort, tightness, pinching. I myself used to have a lot of problems in my hip flexors until I learned how to strengthen them in a long position. And that is what we are working on today. So if you're somebody who gets pinching in your hip flexor on the bottom of your squat, you're in good company. I used to get that exact same thing until I learned this. I even used to get clicking in my hip flexor. Every time I used to extend my leg, it was painful, it was uncomfortable, and it's such a common problem. So if that's something that you are experiencing, this video is for you. Or even if you're just experiencing a little bit of tightness in the hip flexor after sitting at the end of your workday, this is what you're gonna do. So this video is part of a weekly series where I give you one mobility drill every single week that you can implement into your routine. So if you want to see those mobility drills and get a very thorough walkthrough, make sure to hit subscribe. This week's drill is the supported long lunge. All you're going to need is a bench or a chair or a couch, anything solid that you're going to be able to hold on to, put your hands on. Here's what you're going to do. Every key part of this is going to make it way more effective. So make sure you're listening to each cue very carefully. The first thing you're going to do is set up in this half kneel position and place your hands on your object. You're then going to come as far forward as you can with your back knee on the ground. This is really important. Come as far forward as you can first. Once you've hit your personal max, here's where things are going to get spicy. You're then going to pick the back knee up off the ground. Now we're really going to feel this in our hip flexor. Here's what I guarantee a lot of you did when I said pick your back knee up off the ground. You did this, meaning your hips shot up. This is actually going to take the stretch and strengthen out of the hip flexor quite a bit. So let's do this one more time and just make sure our setup is on point to get the most out of it. So once you're as far forward into the stretch as you can with your knee on the ground, you're going to keep your hip as low to the ground as you can and pick up your back knee only as much as you can without that hip shooting up. For some of you, that might just look like this. It might just be the tiniest little amount. For others, you're going to almost be able to straighten your back knee. This is going to depend on how open your hip flexor already is. Now, I'm timing this, and we're holding for 30 seconds. Your goal is keep that hip as close to the ground, keep sinking down, and keep trying to straighten that back knee as much as you can. For another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, set down. Okay, so we should have already gotten a lot out of that. Let's give it a break, and we're going to try one more time, adding on a couple more pieces that's going to make this even more effective. All right, so here we go. Same steps. Get as far as you can into that low lunge. Keep your hip as close to the ground as you can as you pick up that back knee. Now the next thing you can do is this front knee, you can allow it to open up. You can allow this front knee to sit a little bit off to the side, and it's going to be easier for you to sink this hip down to the ground. The next piece is you can keep your shoulders more up above your hips. These little switches are just going to mean you're going to feel it way more into that working hip. And set your knee down, come back, relax for a moment. Why this works is your hip flexor is in a stretch, but it's also getting strengthened at the same time. So we're stretching the hip flexor, the tissue is in a long position, but now that tissue is having to hold us up in this position. What that's doing, it is bringing blood flow and nutrients deep into the hip flexor tissue, because we're not just stretching it, but we're also strengthening it. And this is why this works so well, is the combination of those two things is what makes it the most effective hip flexor drill I have ever found. One more time. Get into the position, hands on your object, sink your hips forward, find your deepest long lunge with your knee on the ground. Let your knee fall out a little bit. If that's more comfortable for you, you don't have to. Keep your hip low to the ground as you pick up that back knee. Now, once we find that lowest position, we can always push a little bit off of our object, getting our shoulders stacked the most over our hips as we feasibly can. And then we're just going to sit here, almost there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax and come out of that. And that is your long lunge. This is what took me from very pinchy, uncomfortable hips that even used to hurt when I would just start to walk in the morning, to having very open hips that feel so good. To get the most out of this drill, this is something that I would recommend doing 2 times a week. It is something that your body needs to recover from, as it is a strengthening exercise. So don't do it every day. 2 times a week is absolutely perfect to get the best results. And remember, I'm doing a mobility drill walkthrough just like this every single week. So make sure to hit subscribe so that you get the new mobility drill for free each week. If you want a little bit more support with opening up your hips and getting the most out of your mobility, I absolutely recommend my 6-week program, the Hip Mobility Lab, as it does come with a personalized assessment right at the start from me, so that you can get the most out of the program by making it extremely specific to you. Click that link down below to get into the 6-week Hip Mobility Lab.